Ozielzinho here, straight from Maranhão. Such a beautiful place, right? It's a good land over there.
Good land, hot too.
Oh, I'm going to send a shout out to Israel Santa, my dear friend. He was my student too, and I know he's a really heavy musician from Maranhão. There are good musicians there, right?
Yeah, there are. Israel, by the way, is one of those. I myself have taken a few lessons with him, right? To get a little bit of, at least for me to learn some different phrasing, right? Step away a bit from what I'm already used to playing and learn something different. And Israel, he has a really good teaching style. He works with a language that's pretty cool for us to understand and take advantage of what we already know and use that as a starting point to grab new ideas, right? Israel is really a great guy. Since we're sending shout outs, right? Hey, Nig crew, I've worked with Nig too. The people there are really nice. Good. Shout out to Sidney Carvalho, Maju, Marcão. Everyone. Shout out, Marcão. So let's get started here. Dude, I think you could start by talking about how it was for you in the beginning in Maranhão.
What was your city there?
My city is Santa Inés.
Santa Inés, how many inhabitants did Santa Inés have? When did you start playing guitar? Can you imagine?
I don't know, but 30,000. No, but a little more than that. But it's a small town. It's a small town in Maranhão. Today, it probably has about 200,000 inhabitants. Maybe.
You're 47 still. No, 45. Sorry, you're about the same age as me. I'm 45. I also came from a tiny town that had 30,000 inhabitants when I started, and today it also has 200,000. It looks similar there, right? And I also imagine that those difficulties were very similar to mine, right?
And in the countryside, there's that thing like, those who already know something don't want to share it with others. Because there's that thing of thinking it will pass. No, I won't teach because otherwise he'll get better than me. It's like a competition, right? The crowd had that thing, I just wanted to learn. So there was a guy there who already knew how to play harmonics, right? We didn't even know the name of that thing. For me, it was a scream. It was like the guitar was letting out a scream, that high-pitched sound. So I said, teach me how to do those little screams. Then he said, no, you're too young for that. Not yet. You need to learn more first. 20 days, that's right. Yeah, man, so those who knew something wouldn't share it. The guy was playing here when he was about to do something more complex. Faster, he would turn the guitar like this so you couldn't see.
You know that Van Halen does that too with tapping, right?
The tapping that I invented? Dude, this story about tapping is funny because you mentioned tapping, so let's dive right into it. A lot of what I learned on the guitar was by myself because there was no one to teach me. Those who knew didn't want to share. So I picked a method from a guitarist from São Paulo, Dario Parisi, which is a really good method. And I managed to get a photocopy of that method. But to get the photocopy of that method, indeed, it was through blackmail. It was through blackmail to put the guy in a situation. Because, you see, I already knew how to work with solder, right? I had a soldering iron, I had solder, I knew how to handle it. And a friend of mine, the one who knew, but wouldn't share, who would turn the guitar, and didn't want to teach how to do harmonics, he had that original method. Hey, William, lend it to me. No way, man.
Mention the guy's name.
Yeah, I already gave it up. But it's a pretty generic name, so no one will really know exactly who is who. Unless someone from Santa Inés is watching here. Oh, there will definitely be.
Wow. You can be sure there will be at least half a dozen from Santa Inés.
So what happened? His guitar input jack got loose there. The nut of the jack input of the jack. Actually, right. It got loose and the little wire inside ended up coming off. And the guitar had no sound. And he was going to play that same day. He came to my house and said, dude, solder this for me because I'm going to play today. I said, dude, bring that method that I solder for you. I live far away. I have to go there. Go get it. I'll wait. No problem at all. Leave the guitar here. Go get it, and when you get back, it will already be soldered. I soldered it quickly, okay? I put the little wire there and unscrewed it anyway. Then I took the method. I made a copy. In Cadernet, that's when I really learned how the scales were. The correct fingering. Up until then, scales, I was learning like that. I had recorded a tape from Ricardo Carreras, who was the guitarist of the band Cadoce, an old school guitarist as well. And he also had a study method that was sold at newsstands. I think it was at newsstands that it was sold. I copied the tape from a cousin of mine, but it was just a cassette tape, and it had the method that went along with it, and you would listen to the audio on the tape. I couldn't make a copy of the manual that day because we were traveling. I was traveling with my parents. I was a kid, a teenager, and we were passing through the city of Imperatriz in Maranhão. And that's where I found this material. Then my cousin made a copy for me. I stole a tape from my dad back then. At that time, there was this thing about taking a tape and covering it, right? The tape, I took a tape from my dad and covered it with these lessons. So I just looked at the method. Then I saw that there was the C scale. It had a shape that made it clear it was more or less for this area. Another one here, another one there. But I couldn't get much clarity on that. There was that tablature, not even tablature. I didn't really understand. I only knew that the lines represented the strings and stuff. I looked at it and could only understand that it was the same scale in different areas. So I associated it with the chords, right? There's a C here, there's another one over here, and another one over there. Cool. So that's how I started studying scales early on. I didn't exactly know the correct layout of the scale. I was listening there, ta-da-da-da-da-da-da, and I was looking around here as if I were figuring out a scale by ear. But I was doing a random fingering. The scale was even right because it's C, D, E, F, G, all the way to B, right? But the fingering, the path I was taking wasn't ergonomic for me to play to gain speed with that. So I was studying in a disorganized way, but at least I was already looking for it. I've already moved on, right? I wasn't in that mindset, I'm not going to study guitar because I was doing my best. Right. After I got this method from Dario Parisi, I had the whole crooked tablature, and that's when I learned the scales in the right positions. That really helped me a lot.
Remember how old you were, more or less that?
I think I was around 13 to 14 years old. More or less that. At that time, I was already playing wind instruments. At 9 years old, I started learning wind instruments at church. I played trumpet, I played clarinet, saxophone, reading sheet music. Reading sheet music because with wind instruments, there was no other way. It had to be done through sheet music. So we start with the sheet music. I studied with that Bona method. You who studied at a big music school know the Bona. The Bona is a very traditional method, and I spent almost a year giving lessons by hand. It was like we used to say, it was a lesson in suffering, hitting with the baton, singing the notes. I spent a lot of time doing that. So I played trumpet, clarinet, saxophone. I switched instruments like that because I had asthma. So there were doctors who said it was bad because it strained the lungs. It wasn't that healthy anymore. So playing wind instruments was harmful. It was bad. Then other doctors would say, no, it's good because you're exercising your lungs. Anyway, I played wind instruments until adulthood. Until I was in my early 20s, I was still playing. In the end, I was playing tenor sax. I would know more. Yeah. It's BB, exactly, the alto sax, which is in the A5th, which is that smaller clarinet. It's really high-pitched. It's also in, but man, it's like this, the octave of the clarinet, It's very high-pitched. It's practically the violin of the wind instruments there. And so I was already playing wind instruments. So when I started playing guitar, a big part of the knowledge I already had about sheet music helped me too. After I had already learned the scales, I was studying more techniques. Until then, I had already discovered tapping. I was trying to do the solo of Mr. Crowley, that last part. Right? But I was doing everything by ear. Got it already. Exactly. I still tried to do it the right way. Many years later, I saw the video of Randy Rhoads, and he really plays like this. Right. Doing that sweep there and also that little arpeggio there. But I couldn't do it. I didn't have the fingers to do that back then. So what was my idea? If the sound works, just me hitting with the strength of this one, I hit hard and give it a little flick down so I get this sound and this one. Ena. I just use the same idea of hitting my finger with this other one. Tam, 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 tam. Tam, tam, tam. That was my little trick. But I lived in the countryside, and until then I didn't have access to all that material. In my head, I was creating that there. I thought I was the only one in the world who could do that.
And you were getting a sound just like it.
I could already do it. I did the whole first part, all of it, just with tapping, and for me it was right, it was working. Then, sometime later,
You came up to William? Come, William.
I showed it. Come here, William. No, the guys would see. The guys from the city who also didn't know anything, they saw what was going on. They said, wow, Ozielzinho is getting good at guitar. Ozielzinho is my nickname since childhood because my dad's name is also Ozielzinho. So, Ozielzinho, right? So, the boy, then the guys would say, man, Ozielzinho is getting good at guitar. He plays with his hands over the neck of the guitar. I would just sit there. It was kind of funny. Right. So one day I was at a newsstand looking for an electronics magazine. I liked messing around with electronics even though I didn't really understand it. Okay, I don't really understand electronics, but I just copied. I saw my brother doing things there and I wanted to do the same. So I would look for magazines that had guitar pedal projects, especially the distortion pedal project, which was easier to make. It's the easiest circuit to make, right? So there were several magazines. There was Electronics Knowledge, Total Electronics. The old school folks who know about electronics must be familiar with these magazines.
Juninho Afran did that too.
Man, Juninho too, he made his first pedals.
The podcast that did that?
So while I was looking for an electronics magazine, I saw one with Slash on the cover. I didn't know who Slash was. So I just saw this guy with curly hair, glasses, a top hat, a Les Paul, and a cool ring. I picked up the magazine and started flipping through it. And I thought it was cool because in the magazine, from the middle to the end, there were lessons from guitarists. So there were guys there. Mozart, Melo, Ricardo Danui, Kiko Loureiro, Rafael Bittencourt. I had never heard of these guys.
It was the cover guitar. Oh, it was the guitar cover.
So there was cover guitarra, and there was also guitar player. Now, I don't remember which of the two. That was exactly the one I saw, but I believe it was cover guitarra. I believe it was cover guitarra. So, all right, while flipping through the magazine, I see a photo of Mr. Ed Van Halen with his hand over the neck of the guitar. He with that guitar, PV Wolfgang, and I was like, wow, the guy is literally doing my technique, man. Look at that, man. I thought the guy had copied me. How is he going to copy me if I'm just some nobody? No one there in the countryside of Maranhão. So I was like, wow, man, the guy is doing the same technique I'm doing. While I'm going with the corn, the guy is already burping up the couscous, you know? So I read the text further down, and it said something like, oh, I don't know what, the return of Van Halen. It seems like Van Halen had taken a break in his career. It seems like he was getting treatment for I don't know what. So when he came back again, it was already with the sponsorship from Pivi, something like that. So he had done a show in Canada. So in the text, I don't know what, the crowd went wild during the two hands part of Eruption. So in the photo, he's with both hands there. And I said, wow, the name of the technique already has a name. It even has the right name. So I showed it to the guys, right? Dude, that thing about playing over the neck, man, I didn't invent it, not at all. That already exists. The foreigners out there already forget. The guys know, man, I was really upset. Like, man, there's no information about anything here. But you are getting the same sound. Exactly. You ended up intuitively getting the right sound. Yeah, I managed to get it. The correct technique. Yeah, I managed to get it. But you know that thing about overcoming the difficulty. I found my way there, and then I started believing that I had invented a technique, right? But that's what my colleagues consoled me with. Right, let's put it this way, in quotes. This guy, at least you managed to do the thing and created a technique that apparently is even hard. So you did it all by yourself, man. Nobody taught you. So it stays there.
If you had done that 30 years ago, it would have... Can you imagine?
You would have patented it. But it was really cool, and at least it's a technique that I think is nice. I think it's beautiful. It catches your attention. I see a lot of people playing tapping these days. So in a way, it's already much more complicated than what I can do. I can't do those things with putting two fingers together like that. I see those videos of André Nier, and he does it in a certain way. And he doesn't even use a pick. André Nier, he's crazy. That guy, he's the outlier. So I think that stepping is beautiful like that. But also, it's not something that I keep chasing after. These days, I try to be more expressive, to be more melodic. I really like melody on the guitar. Music, for me, I think that melody is what matters. It sticks in people's heads. Right. The technique, it impresses, but the melody. That's what sticks in a person's head. People keep singing the tune after that song. I think that's cool.